What's going on, everyone? So, Dallas Mavericks just really handed it to the Minnesota Timberwolves. There was a stretch where Kyrie and Luka combined nearly had as many points as the Minnesota Timberwolves has scored entirely. This was just a masterclass put on by Luka. Minnesota, they had little stretches, little runs, but I mean, the game was essentially over almost from the beginning. Dallas just kept hammering it and just laying it on them. And Minnesota they didn't have any answer. The offensive onslaught by Kyrie and Luka, and then you had several other key guys just hitting big shots after big shots. It was just too much for Minnesota. This playoffs was clearly all about the matchups, right? Minnesota was built to beat Denver, and then you see them going to Dallas, and Dallas just had the team that was equipped in order to beat Minnesota. And what an impressive run by the Dallas Mavericks, right? Like, I mean, there was times where it looked like, are they even going to make the playoffs again? Right? Like Kyrie and Luka just looked just like it wasn't going to work at times. It was very awkward, very clumsy. They clearly needed some other pieces. They go and pull off the moves for PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford, and it was just like everything just started clicking. And they got into the playoffs, and now they're in the NBA Finals. You really got to hand it to the Dallas Mavericks. The defense intensity picked up. Kyrie and Luka, you always knew that offensively they were going to deliver. They were going to show up. We talk about two of the best closers in all of basketball on the same team. You knew as long as there were tight games that Dallas would always have a chance. But to be honest, I didn't necessarily think Dallas would be in this position in the NBA Finals. There's always a chance, right? I touched on it throughout the season. Like you can't really count out a team that has Luka. We've seen what he's done in the playoffs. Kyrie Irving, what he's done. But to say like, oh, I thought that they basically would run through and get to the NBA Finals, I didn't really buy it. So a lot of people that felt otherwise and felt Dallas was a real contender and felt that Dallas was a real team, I got to give them credit because personally, I thought it was going to be a little awkward. Like my question was like especially when they get close into games, how was it going to be this overlapping of Kyrie and Luka, and the fact that they were able to work it out and have this just 1-2 punch. It still is at times a lot of you go, I go, you go, I go, but it's been very effective. And it's just like Luka goes to the bench, Kyrie just takes over. Kyrie goes to the bench, Luka takes over. They've had that nice balance, which I think you got to give a lot of credit to Jayson Kidd. But they also, one of the things that I talked about heavily in the off season, right? One of the things that I dove into was the Phoenix Suns and the Dallas Mavericks. And I said I really didn't like how Phoenix necessarily had their roster structured. Dallas, I thought, Grant Williams was a bad acquisition, and I had some questions, but I thought that they had a little more kind of well flushed out roster, but I still thought that they needed more. And like I said, they pull off the move for PJ Washington, they pull off the move for Daniel Gafford, and that was what they needed. And, so I was curious to see, because Phoenix was basically stuck. Dallas, I knew, would be able to make some moves. My thoughts were like, what are those moves? And will they have enough impact to kind of resolve some of the Dallas issues? And they did, and Derek Jones Jr., he really stepped up. Daniel Gafford, he just been massive. And just the rim protection that he provides, as well as just him being a lob threat and the hustle and the grit. Derek Lively, Jaylen Green, like all these guys have they just stepped up and just been spectacular. But now they take on the Boston Celtics. And the question is, again, matchups have been a big thing. How does Dallas match up to the Boston Celtics? Now, I know some people have some concern. Oh, Boston's got 9 days of rest or whatever. Dallas is going to get like a week. Both of these teams are going to be well rested. Both of these teams are really going to be able to take the time to properly watch film and kind of round out and properly execute and get ready for the previous games. Look, for being honest, Boston on paper should beat Dallas. Boston on paper they're ridiculous. Now, obviously, they need Kristaps Porzingis back. I imagine Kristaps comes back. Right? There was talks about him coming back even in Game 4, but they didn't really need him. The series was over when they went up 3-0, so it was just kind of like, hey, let him get some rest. he's going to get another, 9 days or whatever. So I expect him back. So let's go under the assumption that Boston is fully healthy. Boston is ready to go. Same thing with the Dallas Mavericks. To me, my biggest problem with Boston is like, I can't believe in them until they prove to me otherwise. Every year they're in this position. They're in the conference finals or the NBA finals, right? Second NBA finals in 3 years. Same thing with Dallas, or conference finals for Dallas, first finals. But my thing is that like Boston just loves to get away from what works, right? They love to shoot themselves out of the game at times. They also have been the worst pick and roll defense in the playoffs. Now, granted, that has been without Kristaps Porzingis. He's going to help resolve a lot. But how do they contain Luka and Kyrie and also are able to manage Gafford and Lively on that, they're just being the lob threats and stuff that they are? Boston is probably the best equipped as far as putting pressure on Luka and Kyrie, right? Jaylen Brown, and particularly Jayson Tatum, with his size and his strength, he's a guy that can really just apply the pressure to Luka. Same thing with Jaylen Brown. I think he can apply a lot of pressure to Luka. And then with Kyrie, you got Drew Holiday, you got Derek White, you got bodies that, again, match up very well and should be able to make things difficult for Luka and Kyrie. So to me, it's really going to boil down to, can Dallas's role guys really step up in those games where, maybe Luka is not as efficient as he usually is, or Kyrie isn't as efficient because Boston's just really hammering and just properly containing these guys. Because again, I think that they're the best equipped. And then also, can Boston continue to perform and do what works, right? As far as coaching goes, Dallas, I'm not a big fan of Joe Mazzulla. I don't think he's a very good coach. He's been better this year, don't get me wrong. Last year, he was, like, at times awful. Like, worst coach in the league awful at times. This year, he has been much better, to his credit. But I just give the nod to Dallas. I just think that, Jason Kidd is the better coach between the two. But also, you got a lot of storylines, too, which I think is very interesting, right? You got Kyrie playing his former team in the Boston Celtics. Curious to see, he's going to show up. He's going to want that like revenge factor. He's going to want that, there's going to be that storyline, that narrative that goes on. And then same thing with Kristaps Porzingis and the Dallas Mavericks, right? Like that's another big thing that, you're going to have that storyline. You're going to have that dialogue. Right, Kristaps, you got to imagine he's going to want to really hammer Dallas for, hey, you guys got rid of me type thing. And, so you have all these like underlining just storylines, the big Goliath that is the Boston Celtics and, the underdog, the David that was the Dallas Mavericks coming to approach and which team is going to come out on top. Now, again, I do think both teams match up very well, right? I do think that you have Dallas with this just much improved defense that has just been swarming at times. Even Luka and Kyrie have really bought in on the defensive side. I also think that they have multiple bodies and pieces that they can throw at multiple guys on the Boston Celtics. To me, PJ Washington is going to be a big factor. Is he going to be able to kind of slow down and contain, a Jaylen Brown or a Jayson Tatum at times? Right? You're never going to stop them, but can he at least make things difficult and kind of, apply the pressure? He's done a good job of, like, even Karl Anthony Towns when he's trying to back him down, of just holding his own, standing his ground, and not getting moved. Right? So can he kind of apply the pressure? Again, Tatum's going to do Tatum things. Jaylen Brown's going to do Jaylen Brown things. But it's about, can you make things difficult, right? Can you, even if they do get their 30, right? Is it on poorer efficiency, right? Because that could be the difference. And then also in close games, again, I got to give the nod to Dallas in that regard. Like Boston at times it's almost like they don't know what to do down the stretch, right? It's like Jayson Tatum's supposed to be your clear-cut guy, but at times it's kind of like, and you could argue, like, one of the beauties of Boston is that, like, it's by committee. In any given night, you have a different guy that could just go off, where Dallas is kind of limited in that regard, right? You're kind of leaning heavily on Luka and Kyrie. That doesn't mean that like a PJ Washington can't go off for like a 25 or something like that. Or, one of these guys just has an impressive night on the offensive side. But really, more times than not, it's going to be Luka and Kyrie giving you 60 plus a game, right? Where Boston, Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, even Derek White has gone off. Kristaps Porzingis. Al Horford can even have a big game. Drew Holiday, can go and drop 25 on any given night. Right? They just have so many pieces that on any given night, any given moment, can just kind of be the next guy and the next guy in line. But I do worry about Boston's late game execution at times, where Dallas, I trust Luka and Kyrie to, if it's a tie game or it's a 1-point game either way or something like that, or it's, within a bucket either way, I just trust Luka and Kyrie to close that out down the stretch over a Jayson Tatum and, Jaylen Brown and these guys. Again, I could be wrong, but I do. And at times, Jayson Tatum, the real question is, does he just disappear at times? Because we've seen that a lot in big games, big stretches, big moments, right? And one of the things that you saw against like the Warriors was the mental aspect at times. Right? If Dallas is just laying it on and Luka's just cooking and he's in their head and he's talking his mess, and does Dallas kind of break down Boston from a mental standpoint, right? Because you saw the collapse at times. Like Boston should have won the chip against Golden State. Like that was inexcusable. And Golden State, just their experience and their just demoralizing efforts at times were a big thing. And Luka's probably the best in the league at just demoralizing people. And so it's going to be I think this is going to be a very fun, entertaining, exciting, just finals. I don't think this is going to be a big like Dallas 1-5 or Boston 1-5. Again, you look at Boston and you're just like, they should probably beat Dallas in 5 or 6. I just don't think that's going to be the case. I think bare minimum, you have a 6-game series. I think bare minimum, you're going to have that game where Dallas just comes out and just torches Boston. I think you're going to have that game where Boston just doesn't play right. We saw it in the first 2 rounds where they just, they lose a game at home or whatever. I think you'll see a series where, I wouldn't be shocked if going back to Dallas, it's a 1-1 series. Like I wouldn't be shocked in particular game 1 if Boston loses game 1 and Dallas is up 1-0 and now all the pressure's at Boston. We'll see how they respond if that happens. But, I really think that this is going to be probably a long drawn out series. I wouldn't be shocked at all if this goes to 7. If I had to bet on it, I'd probably take Boston in 6, somewhere in that ballpark. But it wouldn't surprise me. I wouldn't bet on this because I really do think Dallas can win. Right? Like genuinely. However, again, if I was a betting man, I would have to take the Boston Celtics in this series. But anyway, as always, this is a discussion. I pass the question on you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? Are you excited for these finals? Who do you think takes it? Again, however you feel, whatever your thoughts are, I'd love to hear it. So let me know down in the comments below. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. So we enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one.